Hello, folks, and welcome to our June 2025 Market Chats. I'm Rodney Hathaway, Chief Investment Officer here at Waukesha State Bank Wealth Management. Foreign direct investment, will it drive economic growth? That's the topic today. There have been a lot of press announcements over the past several months on various investments being made in the U.S. by corporations in foreign countries. The term foreign direct investment, or FDI, is used by economists to describe any ownership stake in a foreign company or project made by an investor, company, or government from another country. Why is FDI important? It stimulates economic growth of the recipient nation. FDI during much of the early 2000s was dedicated and directed towards several emerging economies such as Brazil, Russia, India, and China, sometimes referred to as the BRIC nations. In fact, a flood of FDI into China after its acceptance into the World Trade Organization in 2001 helped drive that economy to the number 2 position globally, only behind the US. However, in recent years, the destination for FDI has shifted away from China and Russia for a few reasons. China, ground zero for the COVID-19 pandemic, and the heavy-handed Communist Party there has caused FDI to shrink drastically since 2019. Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022 has caused virtually every foreign corporation to abandon operations there. The US has been the primary beneficiary of the pullback of the FDI in those two nations. In fact, the US has now been the recipient of the most FDI dollars globally over the past 5 years. On the surface, the amount of these investments being committed to the US is quite staggering. In my 30-year finance career, I've never seen the magnitude of capital investment announced in such a short period of time. Our research team here at the bank recently combed through press releases and government websites to aggregate all the announced projects, which total roughly $5.5 trillion. Of that $5.5 trillion, about $3.4 trillion is committed from foreign countries and about $2.1 trillion from corporations, many of which are foreign. To put this dollar amount into perspective, the total economic output of the entire U.S. economy was roughly $29 trillion in 2024. So the committed FDI would add significantly to the base over the next few years. There's also an argument to be made that the FDI will have a multiplier effect on the U.S. economy by creating additional layers of jobs that will benefit the surrounding communities where the investment is made. In this chart, it shows the level of FDI made by the U.S. abroad and the FDI dollars coming into the U.S. in 2022 and 2023. As you can see, the FDI coming in the U.S. from the Middle East was minimal in those 2 years. However, the UAE, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia have recently announced a combined $3.2 trillion in FDI directed towards the U.S. over the next several years. Japan has also announced a significant $700 billion investment into the U.S., which includes a $500 billion commitment from SoftBank. Just last week, Nippon Steel stated they'll invest $11 billion into U.S. Steel over the next 3 years as part of its acquisition stipulations approved by the White House recently. The administration has stated its desire to rebuild the steel manufacturing industry here in the U.S. back to its once dominant position held in decades past. And this $11 billion investment by Nippon Steel could be the catalyst for that. Manufacturing, technology, and pharmaceutical industries are at the top of the list in terms of investment dollars projected to be spent. Of the $2.1 trillion projected spend from corporations, about $1.6 trillion is earmarked for technology and artificial intelligence, as seen in this chart. There are many factors that companies and nations consider when making investment decisions at this scale. corporate tax rate being a key point. The lowering of the corporate tax rate to 21% during the first Trump administration has been an important driver over the past 7 years that has placed the U.S. in the #1 destination for global FDI. As the big, beautiful bill makes its way through the halls of Congress over the next few weeks, the tax rate component will have a significant bearing on the future of that $5.5 trillion projected FDI spend going forward. The White House is hoping to pass this bill going into the Independence Day holiday, which could provide a boost to investor sentiment through what has historically been the summer doldrums for the stock market. Ultimately, we expect this $5.5 trillion will provide a steady tailwind to economic growth for years to come, even if consumer sentiment wanes near term. Once again, thank you for tuning in, and as usual, we welcome any questions you may have and look forward to future discussions with you.